Over the last few weeks, horrific images have emerged from Israel and the Gaza Strip, many involving children and young people. Here in the U.S., Jewish American and Palestinian American parents and their children are grappling with the mental toll of a war thousands of miles away. I recently sat down with some of those families.
How important is family?
Family is everything. Literally, the first thing I do when I wake up is I check if everyone's alive.
Palestinian American mother and journalist Layla El-Haddad says she constantly worries about her relatives in the Gaza Strip.
They're human beings and they're terrified, and it feels overwhelming, and we all feel kind of helpless because it feels like it's, right now, the way they describe it, it's them against the world.
At home with her own children in Clarksville, Maryland, she says their understanding of what's happening in Gaza and the broader Israel-Palestinian conflict varies by age. You have 4 children. How do you help them deal with what you describe as this collective trauma?
It's absolutely collective, it's generational. The older ones now get that this is sort of understood not just as a Palestinian struggle, but an anti-colonial struggle. The younger ones, of course, want to know why no one is doing anything to stop this. It's part and parcel of this, what we expect to be a very long struggle for freedom. It doesn't mean that they don't feel hurt and pain, but that's how they understand it.
Layla's 15-year-old daughter, Noor, grew up going to protests in support of Palestinians. She says she paints to express her identity and still remembers her trips to Gaza.
I would swim in the ocean in the middle of the night, horseback riding, it's just something special. And having all those memories with those family members, not knowing if they're gonna live for me to visit them and have those memories again is just really concerning.
20 miles away in Rockville, Maryland, clinical social worker Orly Zimmerman-Lazarov has spent most of her time the last few weeks counseling other Jewish and Israeli American families like her own. What have the last few weeks been like for you?
A nightmare. A nightmare. I think I can safely speak for all Israelis that we're not okay right now. We'll never be the same. There is no way for us to kind of really go back right now and be what we were before. We all know people that have been murdered. We all know people that have been captured and are still very much, we don't know what's going on with them.
What are some of the questions you get the most from parents about how to help their children understand what's happening?
Parents ask how should I share that somebody lost their life, that died. In most cases, we help children understand it. This is part of the natural cycle of life, and that's not the case in here. Helping children see themselves as safe, as protected. We have the privilege here to talk with our children about being safe. That's not something that, unfortunately, people in Israel have right now.
The ongoing war has led to difficult conversations within families here in the U.S. and fear given the rise of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, especially after the murder of the 6-year-old Palestinian American boy, Wadi El-Fayyoum.
Our son has, told us that he heard this story, and he himself, fears for his safety and wonders why anybody would do that to a boy. And as he watches the news, he wonders why many children in Gaza as well have been killed.
In Portland, Oregon, Palestinian American Riyad Faris and his wife Krista say since the war started, their 3 children have sometimes struggled to feel accepted at school.
My son came home from school and they had a long conversation on the playground about this. And he's been struggling about talking with his friends and trying to reach to them for support and not really getting the support that he wants from his friends, because some of his friends believe that the Palestinian people are bad, and that hurts him to know that. So I tried to listen and understand and be supportive and tell him that's not the case.
I got an email from my kid's school principal here in West Philadelphia. Kids are talking about this in the hallway, and she's overhearing kids say, whose side are you on?
Rabbi Ari Lev Fornari is the senior rabbi at Kol Tzedek Synagogue in West Philadelphia and parent of a 7- and 9-year-old. He says while his congregants grieve, he also asks them to think critically about the decades-long Israel-Palestinian conflict and start those conversations with their own children.
Children can handle complexity and they can think critically. If we can teach them the scientific method, we can teach them to think critically about world events and politics and power. There's no question that in this moment, what Hamas did is an atrocity. And at the same time, there is still a power imbalance, and Israel has more power over the people of Palestine than Palestinians have over their own lives and certainly over Israelis. And so I think we can teach critical thinking. We can teach people to hear multiple truths.
In Albany, New York, Orthodox Jewish American mother and cellist Laura Melnikov says her 2 oldest children are curious about the war, and she tries to ease their growing concerns.
One of their babysitters that they had last year was visiting Israel at the time of the attack for the holidays. So when my 6-year-old has a specific concern about his babysitter, I just address that. I say that we know that she's safe right now. I don't tell him things like, from the Monday that we heard that she was still there, and knowing that she had to wait until Thursday for a provisional flight home.
Still, Melnikov says it was important that her children learn to distinguish between the actions of Hamas and other Palestinians.
We wanted to make sure that they knew that the Palestinian people were not, we didn't want to hear them coming home from school and talking about whole swaths of people being animals and things like that. We wanted to make that distinction for them, and at 6 and 9 years old, I think they were capable of that.
Back in Rockville, Maryland, Zimmerman Lazarov says the lack of a clear end to the war makes it harder for both children and adults to cope.
Usually in trauma situations or tragic losses, the event happens, there's an end in sight, and then you can start the healing process, then you can start except that in this case, it's so unpredictable and there's so much uncertainty that really makes it very hard for us as adults to support children in this.
For El Haddad, faith and patience are important in her own family as the war drags on. She says she's telling other families to channel their emotions into positive action.
To be patient, but to have these conversations with them and to frame them in a context that they can understand, that is humanizing.
Conversations, she says she's also having with her own children. Since our interview, El Haddad learned her aunt, 3 cousins, and another family member were killed in Gaza City.